Good Game, the show for gamers, by gamers. I'm Hex.
And I'm Barjo, and that's Brian, whose game we'll be reviewing this week, Dead Rising 2.
Shut
up, Brian. Stupid face.
Civilization 5 is a franchise with a proud tradition of excellent gameplay, but is the 5th installment a worthy addition? We check it out.
Plus, Halo Reach is the last game that Bungie are going to make in the Halo series. Hasn't gone out with a whimper or a bang.
And that promised story from Ray about the European Game Developers Conference. But first, can you guess the game that had this song as its menu theme?
Getting your groove on over there.
The tribal sounds.
Is that how you dance all the time?
Maybe. It's better than your dancing.
What's wrong with my dancing?
That's your dance move.
And then you gotta turn around and do it that way.
Yeah, I remember. I'm just gonna go.
Okay.
Good game.
Things are looking up for Chrome Studios. The Australian developer has suffered substantial layoffs in the last year, but has finally found a corporate saviour, Emergent Game Technologies. Emergent is the outfit responsible for the Gamebryo family of middleware software solutions, turnkey game engines that have formed part of such popular games as Fallout 3, Civilization Revolution, and Bully. Under the new arrangement, Chrome's software engineers will merge their efforts with those at Emergent. Their objective? To create a new generation of cross-platform middleware solutions. Several unannounced Chrome titles are still in the works for 2011. The Guinness Book of Records has awarded Mafia 2 a world record of dubious merit.
5 minutes, we're already talking about my deadbeat.
The most instances of the F word in a video game. The sandbox urban crime RPG has no fewer than 200 instances of the F-bomb, which edges out the previous winner, House of the Dead Overkill, with a mere 189.
No mother way, man.
Mafia 2 still only has provisional certification for the award based on an incomplete tally. The final F-toll could be much higher. The Donkey Kong world record has changed hands for the 3rd time this year, with Steve Wiebe, one of the stars of the King of Kong documentary, regaining his claim on the high score with 1,064,500 points. Will his arcade rival Billy Mitchell try to best him once again? We'll keep an eye on the Twin Galaxies world rankings and let you know.
Good game.
Halo is a big deal, and Halo Reach is an important chapter in the series, not only because it's a prequel, but also it's the last Halo game that developer and creator Bungie will ever make.
You are Noble 6 and defender of the pivotal human colony and military hub of Planet Reach. After answering a distress beacon, it's pretty clear that the planet is being invaded, and it's up to you and your team of tough Spartans to fight them back.
You'll fight through some truly beautiful locations that'll tug at some Halo nostalgia, and more than once you'll stop just to look around and see what's going on.
Aim guns dead ahead, Lieutenant.
Levels are bigger, there's more going on in the background, and everything from the character models to the combat effects just look better.
The levels themselves are the strongest part of the campaign design, I think. There's so much inspiration that's gone into the futuristic cities, and there's multiple paths you can take, so you can split off from the pack and explore on your own, or you can stick with your AI buddies.
I thought the AI was a bit peculiar at times though, Hex. It was only once or twice that I really noticed they were helping me out in the battle.
Yeah, but that's your job though, to kill things. I mean, you're playing the game.
Shouldn't have to be. Shouldn't have to be. Are we gonna sit here all day?
Oh, that hurts.
Things do get quite intense though, so you're mostly just watching your own shielded butt. There are a few of those typically tough Halo points to fight through, and some ostrich bashing. But Hex, I gotta say, I was a little bit disappointed with the whole campaign in general.
You didn't like it?
It's not that I didn't like it, you know, I enjoyed the campaign, I felt satisfied by it. I just think, you know, it's Bungie's last Halo game, and I just think they missed some opportunities here. For example, the whole planet feels like it's being invaded, but you never have the, oh crap, we're being invaded moment, you know, so that was a shame. But I also felt there were just way too many plot turns for convenience or trying to tug at emotions, kind of like a bad action film. So when that wonderful music swells and the character's meant to be doing something all noble and heroic, I just don't care because they haven't spent the time to flesh out these characters. I know Halo isn't Shakespeare, but I just wanted it to be a bit better for their final game.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Plus, Planet Reach is meant to be this super important military hub, you know, and yet they didn't notice an invasion was happening. Oh, what's that?
No, somebody tell me this ain't happening.
We need to get out of here now.
I think true fans will notice these little things that don't quite make sense.
Yeah, it's like how the Jackals had the shield in their other hand for every other Halo game. Just after the invasion, they decided to switch.
It's come from the top, boys. Switch hands.
The motion capture is much better this time around. They don't walk like Thunderbirds anymore, which is good. And like I said, it's not that I didn't like the campaign, it's just I wanted it to be much better.
There are a few gameplay tweaks to freshen things up. Dual wield is gone, but now you can perform assassinations by sneaking up on enemies, and they look pretty good. There's an ability slot, the default of which is sprint, but can be changed for other abilities such as a hologram, an armor lock for temporary invincibility. Oh, and jetpacks. The controls are responsive as ever, accuracy is forgiving where it needs to be, and it's all tied together nicely with elegant menus that let you pull your party around wherever you go.
It's nice to be fighting elites again, and now when you team up with 3 others, the difficulty actually gets much harder, which is something Halo fans have wanted for quite a while. I think I like the hologram the most, Hex, because not only did it take me back to Duke 3D a little bit, but you can send your hologram off for a holographic death and then circle around and flank your enemies, or you can use it just to get some breathing room as well. And you really need all the help you can get because these Spartans rely on health packs to stay alive.
As you progress through single player and multiplayer, or do anything, you'll earn credits that you can spend on cosmetic upgrades for your characters. There's a good selection plus a few wacky options for those who really put the hard yards into multiplayer.
The mapmaker Forge, which was added in Halo 3, was a fantastic addition, and here it's been tweaked to be much better. You can now phase objects within objects, which means you can pretty much make anything. They've also added a giant map called Forge World, which I think good things will come from, but like any mapmaker, you need to spend a lot of time and effort to make anything worthwhile. It's good you can do it with friends though, although that does often deteriorate into violence.
Yes, you dropped a lot of tanks on people, Barjo. There's so many setup options in multiplayer. It feels like Bungie have just gone, here, take everything, go nuts. Firefight from ODST is back with matchmaking, and there are new multiplayer modes too, such as Headhunter,
Skull taken.
where you have to collect flaming skulls and drop them into a zone for points.
Skull scored.
But if you die, you lose your skulls.
I like that a lot too. Stockpile isn't bad either, and there's quite a bit of strategy to it. You have to collect a bunch of neutral flags and drop them in a safe zone, and it's quite sad watching your flags go way off into the distance. Makes me upset. I also quite liked Invasion, which is an objective-based mode, and your gear goes up a tier each round. I think we should wrap this up though, Hex. Final thoughts?
Multiplayer is a perfect beast, and you can also add psychological filters so you can play with like-minded people. And the thing about playing a game as popular as this is that you'll always find a match. Plus, I don't know how we ever played Halo without jetpacks. Bungie stuck with what works. They certainly made it prettier, and they gave fans every tool they possibly could to send off the game that made them. So I'm giving it 9 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Yeah, it's like they took all the best bits from every Halo game and just funneled that into Reach. I was expecting more from the campaign, Hex, but you can't deny that this is a great game with a perfect multiplayer. So I'm giving it 9 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Good game.
Well, Hex, surprise, surprise, it seems we have a few questions about Halo Reach this week.
Ha! Who would have guessed it?
Who would have guessed that?
Well, let's get to it then with this one from Riley in Sydney, New South Wales.
I would have guessed it. In fact, I did.
Is there a legendary ending in Halo Reach?
Well, and we're not really spoiling anything here. We're sorry to say, unlike every other Halo game in the series, there is no special ending for finishing it on Legendary.
This is it, baby. Hold me.
Yeah, that was a bit of a bummer, but there is a really cool Easter egg right near the end that you can get on any difficulty. We can't say much more than that without spoiling stuff for you though, but just try holding the right stick to the right during the last cutscene before the credits.
While we're speaking of Easter eggs though, there are a few great ones like this Covenant dance party.
And there's also this special hidden tribute room near the end that can only be accessed by playing on Legendary.
We'll leave it to you to figure out how to get to those though. Alright Hex, we've got another one from Noble 6 on Reach in Queensland.
Hey guys, in Halo Reach I'm trying to get the achievement If They Came to Hear Me Beg. Tried it on the package at the start. I can perform the assassination on the elite, but I don't get the achievement because apparently I won't die from the fall. Help me.
Well 6, you're better off trying it at the start of the level after the package. The trick is to make sure you disengage sprint before you land, because if you're sprinting when you land, you won't actually die, and so the achievement doesn't count.
Race you to her.
Civilization has always had that perfect blend of discovery and combat and economy and diplomacy all wrapped up in this epic ball of strategy. It's a franchise that has been layering tweaks upon itself for years, so it's no surprise that Civilization 5 feels extremely polished.
Yes, once again, the latest Civ is the best Civ, but make no mistake about it, Civ 5 certainly is the modern update to the series that the fans have been waiting for.
If you've never played Civilization before, do it. It's turn-based strategy at its best, and it's one of those games that just gets better every single time you play it as you work out new strategies for world dominations and perfect it.
I mean, there's so many ways to win too, plus you also learn how to better handle those unpredictable opponents.
I'm listening.
You'll need to learn how to deal with them diplomatically through trade and treaties if you want to kick up the difficulty setting, which leads to a more challenging and ultimately rewarding game.
You can set the AI personalities to be random, which is nice, because I found that was the only thing that really stopped me playing the old Civilization games, was you'd be able to predict exactly what their responses were going to be.
当然不行.
Also, I found the AI really interesting to engage here. They get tetchy if you move your units too close to their borders and start piling out some defense. It's fun trying to convince them to wipe each other out, and I'm always surprised, Hex, when they ask to negotiate peace. Sif.
Units gain combat experience and acquire bonuses, and you can instantly replenish their health if they're close to death, or make them more effective in certain types of terrain or against certain units.
It's now no longer possible to stack your military units, so what you see is what you get. There's no tanks hiding under that horse. Also, they fixed a lot of the logic here. Archer units are no longer effective against planes, for example, and that was something that Civ 4 was really clutching onto, so it's a massive relief they've changed that.
I also liked that any unit can move across water. You don't need to pile them onto carriers first, but naturally non-seafaring units are extremely weak when travelling over the sea. One of the other big changes that really improves the strategy here is that the whole world is now set out on a hex grid. You have more options in moving your units around the grid, and it also changes the way the borders of your city expand. You can also buy extra tiles now to rapidly expand your city, which can be extremely useful if you're close to a good resource and only one space out. There's lots of little tweaks to improve the gameplay here, and I think after a big playthrough, Civ 5 strikes me as feeling extremely well balanced.
Yeah, I agree, and also now there's the addition of city-states, and that really mixes things up. These are NPC-controlled territories which you can attack or make friends with benefits with. They add a lot of drama to the game, and they'll take a lot of love to win over. Gifts and cash are all well and good to ingratiate yourself, but you'll need to help them to wipe out barbarians, and they constantly demand you to build a certain thing or make a trade route to keep them happy.
Yeah, they can be tough little buggers to wipe out, and annexing their city and then keeping them happy afterwards isn't a task that can be done overnight. Befriending them will give you culture along with building certain buildings, and your culture stat all goes towards what governmental policies you can access.
Policies provide huge benefits in the long game, and it's nice having more tech trees to advance and experiment with. It's here you really pick and choose how you want to run the world. Policies stack, unlike Civics and Civ 4, which you had to switch in and out of. How smaller and bigger civilizations stack up against these policies is still something we're coming to grips with 20 hours in, and that's part of the beauty of Civilization, is that you always want to have one more go, one more turn to try a different strategy, and now more than ever there's more incentives to do so. More.
It's easy to get obsessed with the intricacies of this game, and yet it's also completely accessible. I mean, there's nothing like playing online with a friend to learn the ropes. We did find a couple of tiny little interface and graphical glitches here and there, but the review build we're playing on wasn't the final code, so they'll probably patch that for release.
But the actual responsiveness of all the menus in this Civ is better than all the others. You know, Civ 4 kind of, all the menus were a little bit laggy to come up, so it's definitely a sleeker design. Other than no longer having Leonard Nimoy doing any sort of narration, sad face, the only letdown for me now is that there's still no better victory screen. Why not just give me a nice, decent cutscene or something? And it's not a spoiler to show this, but if you really don't want to see it, just blink right now. Ready? There it was.
God, it's that static old picture again. And in a science victory, you don't even get to see a rocket ship take off.
I know. In fact, if you keep playing, it's still there. It never took off. Or they built another one.
What I really love about this game is that it lets you focus on what interests you. You can be all about economy if you like, or science. You don't have to blow everyone up, but you can. You shape the game to your liking, and discovery is always one hex away. So I'm gonna give it 9 out of 10 rubber chickens.
It's like a whole bunch of Civ fans got together and said, let's fix everything that's been bugging us. And they did. There's no changes here just for the sake of it. It's the best Civ game ever. I'm giving it 9 out of 10 as well.
Good game.
And now it's time for our foreign overseas international correspondent Ray to bring us another report from one of Europe's most important gaming events.
That's right, and this time it's the European Game Developers Conference held in Cologne, Germany.
Let's take a look.
Game development is all about communication. The brightest minds in the industry are always sharing their ideas, and when they want to share them with each other, they come here. The Game Developers Conference has been running since 1988 and now takes place annually in 5 cities spread across 3 different continents.
If you want to know what's happening in the industry, all you need to do is to open the schedule builder for GDC Europe. All the top trends are actually, they're identified right there.
One of the biggest trends over the past year has been the explosion of mobile gaming.
The iPhone has become a huge platform in a very short space of time, and smartphones as well. There's a lot of studios in Australia and New Zealand who are actually doing very interesting work on iPhone. It's a very viable way for studios down in the corner of the world to actually get a start and to become successful and to grow. What we're hoping to achieve by coming up here is basically getting in touch with what's happening in Europe, seeing the various trends and really seeing how we can better position or create games to tap into those different audiences.
If you've got friends, then you've probably noticed one of the other big trends in gaming: social games.
Social gaming, it's just been an incredible revolution. I mean, the whole thing is only about 3 years old, and already it's one of the most common ways that people experience games.
Social games are incredibly hot right now because we've, in the process of, like 2 years, acquired 100 million players a day. We're not making games for someone who, grew up playing games. We're not making games primarily for someone who's really into Halo. We're making games that anyone can play.
Social games have only just begun to kind of scratch the surface of what they can eventually be.
GDC is also a great equalizer. It gives some of the world's smallest developers a chance to be heard alongside the bigger players, like the team behind the spooky puzzle platformer, Limbo. What do you hope people will take away from your talk?
Talk is mainly about keeping stuff simple, boiling it down and only supplying what the player needs to be able to solve a puzzle. There's stuff like killing your darlings, which is kind of a classic, so we probably developed, I don't know, a lot of puzzles, and we have to cut a lot of it away because it wasn't good enough. I mean, that's difficult. That's always difficult because you've been putting a lot of hours into it and you don't want to skip it. But we needed to do that to be able to keep puzzles high-end, as I think we've been able to do in Limbo. So hopefully other people will be inspired by this. We might see that in a few games in the future. Who knows?
There are a lot of speakers at this year's GDC, more than 300 in fact. But there was one speaker who stopped the show: Deus Ex and Epic Mickey creator, Warren Spector.
Games are not movies. They are not television. They're not radio. They're not comic books. They're none of those things. We draw inspiration from them. We draw techniques from them. But at some point, we have to grow up. Clearly, we can borrow animation techniques, lighting techniques from film, sound techniques from radio, and I think we can learn a lot about mission structure and episodic storytelling from television. All that stuff is great, but really what I hope we do is we take all of that and then we sort of make it secondary to engaging players in the creative process. We have to stop saying, well, let's make ourselves more like those old media. We have to become a new medium, the medium of the 21st century. And so I just wanted people to say, yeah, it's great that we borrow from movies, but let's not try to become movies. Let's try to become whatever games should become over the next 20, 30, 50, 100 years. And the only way we do that is by sharing ideas and talking about things and not keeping secrets.
The best zombies are slow zombies, and the best way to kill them is hilariously. It's time for the dead to rise a second time in Dead Rising 2.
You play as Chuck, a man trying to keep himself and his daughter alive in a zombified world. The only problem is his daughter has been bitten, and the only way she'll stop becoming a zombie herself is by obtaining a drug known as Zombrex, which is rare and in high demand.
No, Daddy, no!
Nobody likes shots, honey. But it's very important that you get this.
On top of all this, Chuck is also blamed for the zombie outbreak, so he has to clear his name. It's a stressful time.
Good night, ladies.
We've played the prequel DLC and the main game, and the DLC is a standalone chapter called K0, and you don't actually need the main game to play it. Your main objective is to get out of town, which means searching for all the parts of a motorbike which for some reason are scattered about in random places, and then riding off into the sunset. The zombies, of course, have other plans.
K0 is set in a typical zombie film setting, and it's pretty cool, and I'm going to give THQ a thumbs up for this DLC. It doesn't cost very much, but it's also not very rewarding, so it's kind of like a clever marketing tool, but it does give you an idea of what the main game is like. Basically, it's a lengthy demo that you pay a little bit for, but let's move on to the full game.
Chuck is a motorbike stuntman, and in this new world of zombie-filled streets, he manages to turn it into a more profitable career. After the outbreak occurs, the only thing Chuck cares about is saving his daughter and clearing his name.
At the beginning of the game, it sets everything up in a classic zombie film kind of way.
Get off her!
But then, this zombie apocalypse just turns everyone into some sort of wacky psychopath, and the whole game has this wacky sense of humor to it, so the two don't really gel well together, which is a shame. Of course, your costume choice doesn't really help either.
I'll hand myself over if we haven't gotten any proof by then. I'm just asking for a fair shot.
Dead Rising is a sandbox filled with the undead. There's a guilty pleasure in carving them up, and they're not humans, so you don't feel too bad about it, but it definitely pushes some of those darker buttons. I happily spend hours laying waste to them with an enormous variety of weapons, and luckily Chuck happens to be a distant relative of MacGyver, and by experimenting and collecting scratch cards from bosses and random places, you can construct all sorts of monster mashes.
Nice.
All weapons eventually break, but you do get more XP from playing with the custom ones. It's quite fun building them and testing their effectiveness, or lack of effectiveness.
Soon you figure out that a bat with nails is the easiest weapon to make and one of the most effective. So when you just want to get on with the job, you can stick with that for general zombie clearing.
Sadly, the combat is just as clunky as the first game, so swiping with any weapon, large or small, will stop you in your tracks and punish you. A bit like how Resident Evil doesn't let you shoot and move at the same time. It kind of builds that same sort of tension. And throwing a water cooler at a bunch of zombies never gets old.
You do learn a few new moves as you level up, so things do get easier as you go on, but I would have liked to have seen a little bit more fluidity in the action. How good did the zombies look though, Barjo?
Yeah, they look really good, and there's heaps of them on screen now at once. There's a bit of a domino effect. When one notices you, they all seem to start to come towards you, and it can get quite stressful. It's a good thing that Chuck and the survivors are immune to rapid zombification. Trolleys and wheelchairs help.
Zombies carry a lot of threat because of the design of the game, which means it's super stressful getting from place to place if you don't have any food on you and you're low on health. You can only save when you find a toilet, and checkpoints are scarce indeed.
I don't know why they brought the save system back, Hex. It's a terribly punishing system, and I just feel like we're beyond having to redo stuff for hours now because the game wants me to.
Yeah, it is a bit old school in that way, I think. But so many times you'll leave the safe house, spend a couple of hours wandering the streets, building up an arsenal or earning some cash at the minigames, and whack, your zombie food.
I can see what they're trying to do, but for me, it makes me feel like the game is making me redo things and wasting my time, and I just wish it had better checkpoints, and I would have more fun with it. I hardly ever rage quit, Hex, honestly, and I did rage quit quite a lot in this game. To be fair, we aren't on the final code, and sometimes checkpoints are added in, but still.
It's all made that much more difficult by the fact that the bosses have so much HP, but this seems to be all part of the game's sinister challenge. Just like how you're on a time limit, which is also a Dead Rising thing, I thought this would bother me more than it actually did though, Barjo. When you finish the game or fail, it lets you restart with your higher level and all your cash.
The whole time limit thing kind of is at odds against the make your own fun nature of the game, but you generally get enough time to have a bit of a muck about in between the main storyline missions. One of the best things about Dead Rising 2 we actually haven't talked about yet, and that's the co-op. There are some online modes and they're okay, but the co-op is where the game really shines as you run about causing all sorts of shenanigans with a friend, sometimes in a dress. It's a little buggy now and then, it kicks out the other player, but it always asks you if you want to save, so that's not so bad. You know, I think I like the setting of the DLC a bit better than the main game, which is pretty much just a shopping centre with a Vegas twist. Although that's not a bad thing. It allows for lots of shenanigans and everything here is better. The loading, the look of the game, the gameplay. So I'm giving it 8.5 out of 10 rubber chickens.
I think it was the variety and detail that sold me, Barjo. Plus, guns are actually useful now. Plus, it's the kind of game that you can sit down with a friend and show them what you've made and how much damage you can do with it. So I'm going to give it 8.5 out of 10 rubber chickens.
That's what I gave it.
Same score.
Yeah!
Good game.
So could you guess the game that had this lovely song as its menu theme? It was Baba Yetu from Civilization 4. The lyrics are sung in Swahili and are based on the Lord's Prayer. Uplifting, isn't it, Barjo?
We'll be back next week with reviews of Fear 3 and Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions.
I am Spider-Man.
Ajax will be talking to the best StarCraft 2 players in the country to find out how the game and the community is faring 3 months after the game's release.
Don't forget, if you want to go in the running to win our Zombie Brian, you need to make your own zombie film and upload it to our YouTube competition channel and enter via the website as well, and all those details are here. I think that's it for this week, Hex.
Thanks for tweeting, tweeters. Until next time, may all your games be good ones. Hex out.
Barjo out. Where'd you get those?
You want jelly?
Yeah, give me this one. You know what you do? You go like this, you go, hello, my name is Jack.
Eat me, Hex. I'm so delicious.
Makosa yetu, hey, kama nasi tumegosa mehe wali tuseya.